Hey everyone, and welcome to the Sketchbook Challenge. For this lesson, what we're going to do is more of a drawing lesson than a challenge. We're going to go a little bit longer here with the video, and I'm actually going to do a drawing of a mountain. And this will help you kind of practice your hand-eye coordination and just starting out our landscape series. Because what I'm going to do is over the next week or so, I'm going to do some full-length drawings of landscapes, as well as some exercises in between. So if you want to join the Sketchbook Challenge, make sure you look at the link in YouTube in the video description. It's also going to pop up here on the video as well. Join the Facebook group and you'll be able to see all of the exercises, or you can subscribe to my YouTube channel and also see all the videos. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to sketch out a mountain. And the first thing I'm going to do is really focus on getting the proportion and the shape right. When I talk about details, we'll do that much later. We're really going to focus on our hand-eye coordination and really get the shape of the mountain as accurate as we can, and then go from there. What I like to do is break down the shape, whatever I'm looking at, into smaller pieces. So the first thing I notice is that there's an easy kind of angle or shape over here on the left hand side. It's kind of a big gap. We've got this line right here, and then if you look, I'm not going to worry about the details too much yet. What I'm looking at is the negative space. We talked about that in one of the first exercises. And I'm looking at the shape that the negative space makes. Okay, so there's this kind of shape here. We've got this line coming down, this line coming up, a little bit of curve to it. We'll adjust all of these little details later. Then we have this line coming up that rounds off a little bit. Okay, so we've got that first initial shape in there already. Now what we can do is just kind of look, and again, looking at some of the negative space. So I'm looking outside the line here. Still, you know, you're still looking at the line a little bit, but you're kind of looking at that negative space as well. This is a nice little shape here, because we've got this curve right in here. And it creates this little piece right there, and that's a pretty easy piece to draw. So put that in there, then we can follow this curved line down. It kind of has a little piece come out like that, and then curves down a little bit, and then out off the page. Okay, so I'm really looking at general shape. I'm not really looking at getting all of those little rocks and details yet. What I want to do is get the nice overall shape. We'll get everything placed in here, then we'll go into that detail stuff. Okay, so now let's follow this line back up here. And we're looking up here. If you look at the angle, I'm always looking at angles. The angle of this piece goes up. Now, it might appear that it goes straight across, but if you really look closely, this line goes up a little bit. Got a little piece like this, and then once it gets to this point here, it comes back down ever so gradually. And then comes down this way and starts to, what I'm going to do is just draw this down. Just like that. Just a little faint line for right now. Okay, so this is the peak where the mountain comes up, and then There's a peak right here, and the plane starts back down on the other side, which makes it three-dimensional. Okay, so just gonna look at my shape overall and see if there's any areas I want to adjust. I think what I'll do is just make this, I'm going to just lightly erase that line so I can still see it. I'm going to make that a little bit taller, just a tiny bit taller. Okay, so the main focus right in the beginning here is to really try to get your shape as accurate as possible, and then we can go from there. Then we've got this little angle up for the snow, and then it goes much longer on this side, so the peak is more on the left-hand side, and then the snow comes down over to this point on the right. Okay, next what I want to do is I'm going to draw in, again looking at the negative space. So if you come down this line here, it comes down a little bit, and then there's a little piece that pops up. This is the snowbank on, or the snow cap, I should say, on top of the hill. And if you follow this line on this piece of the mountain, and if you follow the line on this piece over here, it follows the same path, same angle, so you can draw this coming down, okay, it's a little too steep, so we'll erase that and just change it just ever so slightly. Okay, so if I'm looking at this piece here, this line comes down and then comes at a slightly downward angle across. Okay, and now we're starting down on this side. Okay, and there's different things, I made it a little too low. There's different things. What I like to do is look at relationships, and if you look at where this starts to come down on this side and line it up over on this side, the point at which it starts to come down right here lines up to about this point in the line. So I know over here that this right here is where it's going to start to come down. So then I can base this line, since I had to make a little adjustment, coming across like that. I'm just going to define this line a little bit better. Okay, so now what I want to do is continue down the mountain, and I'm not worried too much about detail. What I'm looking at now is the relationship between this peak and this line, and they're pretty much parallel lines until you get down to about this height over here. If you line up each side, this side right here, this is where it comes down like this, lines up with this piece over here. Okay, so you can look and see, are these two pieces lined up? Okay, they are, so then I can continue. And then I want to look at where this piece ends right here, and that lines up with about, it should be right about here, where this piece goes off the side. It's just a little bit lower than that, so that's about right there. Okay, so there'll be some adjustments that we make here, but this is a good start. Then what we want to do So we've got this piece coming down like this, and it actually curves up a little bit more. And it actually has a downward curve through here. Okay, so we have an initial shape here. What I want to do now is I'm going to lightly erase some of these lines. Just going to kind of tap it along. And I'm going to do one more pass through. Okay, so we've got a very light drawing here. And what I want to do is go really, really slow. So I'm happy with this shape right here. Maybe a little bit more of a curve. Okay, I'm going to make this piece a little bit taller. So now I'm adding in these little juts into the rocks. Okay, now what I want to do, once I get these lines in here, I'm going to go a little bit more detail here. We'll adjust these lines a little bit. So we've got this piece coming out here. I'm going to make it, it should be about, if you look at the length of this, it should be almost as long as that. So I need to come out a little bit further. Like that. Okay, once I've got my initial shape in, which is really a basic shape to start with, what we're going to do is start drawing out the areas of where the snow is. So you really want to pay attention to angles again. Right here we've got a little piece of snow, and then the rock. It kind of curves right here. I'm going to erase this line, because that was just a guideline earlier. Now I want to start going a little more detailed within the mountain. So if you look at the snow comes up on the face here and then starts to curve down and then curve right to about here. And then this is where the peak or the line of the mountain starts to change. Okay, and there's a little bit of a dip in the mountain right here. So I'm just going to draw a little basic line like that. Then if I look at the snow over on this side, I'm mostly looking at the dark rock area. You've got a little ridge coming down right here. And then this rock here is darker, so I'm just going to mark that like that. Okay, and then the snow, this little ridge here, comes down to about an even level of this top point of this snow. There's a little snow on top of this peak. You've got that little triangular curved shape there. Okay, and then a little bit of snow right here. So I'm just drawing the shapes of the snow. Okay, so we've got lines that are little bands of snow coming across this angle here. So I'm really paying attention to the angle, and these bands are kind of parallel with the bottom of this rock, this dark rock up here. So I'm always focusing on that as I create these little bands or openings. Okay, and then the snow comes right up close to this peak here. And this rocky area right here is more of a sheer face. So I'm just going to draw this point in, and it has a little bit of a downward angle coming down. It starts a little bit higher and has this downward angle ever so slightly and lines up with these rocks here. Okay, so I'm looking at the rock shape. All of these little bands of snow kind of run along. There's this sheer face. You can even do some vertical lines like this to indicate that sheer face coming across. Okay, we'll add in some detail to that later. We're just trying to block in our shapes for now. Okay, it's a little bit different than, say, how Bob Ross does mountains, because he just made them up out of his head. So we're taking a more technical approach here, drawing in our major shapes. So we've got another band of snow. I'm not worried about all of those little things, really. Okay, and then we've got a tree line that curves over the mountain like this. Okay, and then what I'm going to do now, and this is a little stylized thing I like to do, is I'm going to take a ruler and I'm just going to block in a little bit of a frame around my drawing. It helps give you some reference points too, which is kind of cool. So I'm just going to draw in a little frame here. I'm not worried about making it perfectly even, but try to get it close. Okay, so we've framed in our mountain shape now, and we can look at reference points now. Since we have a close edge, you can look at this point here and see that it comes down and then curls out like that. And then this piece over here comes down and drops off to the side like that. Okay, so we have a lot of our initial shape in. What we want to do now is just going to make one little adjustment here. What we want to do now is start with our white pencil and start adding in some snow, so that way we can then go in and add in our darker values. What we want to do is go in with these light values because we don't want to really mix too much of our graphite with our white pencil. Later in the lesson, I'll probably use a little bit of this white pen, which is kind of nice to bring up your white values. Okay, so I'm going to go in with my white Prismacolor pencil here, and first thing I want to do is I want to tidy up any little smudgy areas. I'm actually going to lighten this line a little bit because this is all going to be white up top. Just leave enough so you can barely see it. And I'll start right up top there, and what I want to do is just look at my reference photo and basically coloring in very lightly at first. We're not going to go super bright with our values yet. Okay, now is the point where we want to go really careful, and I'm just going to go slow here and follow what I see happening on my reference photo. We've got these bands of snow. Got another band up here. Kind of changes direction a little bit to about this point. So I'm leaving little spaces. Line comes up this way and then kind of comes out this way. Then on this side up here, got a little piece of snow, another little piece, then another piece there. You don't have to do every little single piece, but this really helps your hand-eye coordination to really find all of these little details within the mountain. It's going to help you navigate shapes because there's so many fine details, and like I said, you don't have to put in every single detail, but it'll help you a lot if you try to put in as many as you can. I'm not going to put in every single detail. I want to try to get most of the major shapes. Okay, so slowly moving down the mountain, I'm going to come back over here now to this side. Okay, we've got this nice curve here. Then maybe a few sporadic pieces coming off. Okay, I'm going to work my way across again. Just going to thicken up this band. Trying to mimic the shapes the best I can. But again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just try to get the overall feel. Okay, so it's starting to take shape a little bit. There's a little kind of broken up band here. And once we get a lot of this major stuff in, then we can break it down even more into smaller pieces. So keep that in mind. Remember, you have your guidelines. That's why it's important to really try to get your first initial guidelines in nicely. Okay, I'm just going to lightly block in this snow coming down. I'll get more detailed with it a little bit later. Okay, I want to carry the bands across now, the bands of snow. I want to keep my pencil pretty sharp because these bands of snow over here are a little bit finer. And I'm actually going to... Okay, once we've put in our snow shapes, what we want to do now is go back to our B pencil, and I'm going to go very carefully here and just add in some of these little cracks. And there's a very sheer face to this top portion of the mountain. Okay, so this piece right here is a little bit lighter in value, so what I'm going to do is just some vertical hatching across the darker piece right here, and then really light vertical hatching across this piece because the overall value of that top portion is darker. Then over here, we've got this little ridge here, and then some darker value pieces up here in the snow. So I'm just going to add in a few little dark pieces like that. Then we kind of have a angular piece there, so I'm just going to put some angular hatch marks. Same with this piece right here. Okay, some more hatch marks, because this whole portion of the mountain is darker. So all of these open pieces between the snow, we'll do hatch marks. Okay, we'll do a little bit darker hatch mark on this piece right there. And then through this piece again, another layer of hatch marks, and then over here a little bit darker. Okay, so we're getting a little bit of texture here. Maybe there's a little dark piece there, and then some little dark pieces off the top. Okay, over here, this little piece is a little bit darker in value, so I'm going to do some hatch marks like that. Okay, now this piece I really want to focus on a little bit. This piece here, right through this section, is a drop-off, or a little more sheer face, so it's a little bit darker. So I want to go along, do some vertical hatch marks, and add in some of those little ridges that I see as we work our way across. They kind of flare out down here at the bottom, following this kind of a ridge path like that. All little things you want to look for. So there's another little ridge, it kind of lines up with where this snow ends. Then you've got the snow dropping down right through here. And there's another little ridge right there. Okay, another little crack in the rocks right through here. Then this piece right here is quite a bit darker. So I'm going to go back through this section here, add in some more of my vertical hatch marks like that. Okay, and I'm just going to adjust this little piece here again. Just bringing it out a little bit further. Okay, and then I'll darken that back up. Okay, we'll take a 4B pencil now, and what I want to do is add in some darker lines. Some of the ridges here. So I'm going to also have my eraser pencil. And I'm going to go really slowly here and create a few little ridges. And also darken the overall outline. Over here, I've got a little piece coming up, and another little piece coming up like that, and then it's got a little bit of an angle. Okay, and then there's some dirt and rocks going along the edge here, so referencing our line work from before, we've got a sharp line, dark line, heavy weighted, and then light. And it kind of gets defined again right through here. And then this is actually pretty well defined snow, but I'm not going to make it super dark. Okay, so starting to get a nice overall shape to our mountain. Pretty well defined. So now within the mountain here, still with the 4B pencil, just doing a little bit of line work, maybe defining a ridge a little bit, a little more cross-hatching or hatch marks. Not really doing cross-hatching too much yet. Darkening up the value a little bit here. Over here it's quite a bit darker, so I've got this little piece of snow, which I'm going to just kind of square out like that. I'm not going to go too dark in through here. We'll do this little piece because I've got a bunch of little snow pieces in there. So while I've got my pencil, before I get the really dark stuff in there, you can just go ahead and add in some of these little tiny snow pieces. I'm going to bring the value up of this snow. Okay, now with my 4B, I'm going to go along this ridge. And add in just some of those really kind of contrasty lines where the ridges, there's little splits in the rocks. So there's another one right about here. Do a little hatch mark around it. Another little one right through here. When you're doing these ridges right here, look for what this lines up with up here. It's a good way to, kind of get some nice accurate spacing is even if some of your stuff's off over here, if you kind of try to line up each one of these ridges with what it lines up with above, like for example, this lines up with about a third of the way through this rock face. So I'm always looking for those little things, and that helps quite a bit when you're trying to get your drawing accurate. When you do something like this, it's hard to get everything accurate, especially in the time frame that we're doing it. If you were going to spend, a week drawing this, it would be much easier to get everything accurate. You could go ahead and put in all of your little elements, and get them really, really accurate before adding in any detail. So even though we're going a little bit faster, I know this is a longer exercise or lesson than what we've been doing, but a lot of times if you're going to do a really detailed drawing, you're going to spend hours and hours on it, maybe a few weeks or so. This we're doing in about a little over an hour, so just keep that in mind, that when you do go to do a longer drawing, you don't have to do it this quickly. You can take more time and make everything perfectly lined up. But if it's not perfectly lined up, just look at the things above and try to line up things how your drawing is, and then it will look accurate even though there might be a few things that are a little bit off. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is work a little bit more on my snow. So as I work down here, looking for reference points, again, there's this little ridge and there's some bands of snow on it like that. There's little pieces of snow coming down through the rock face. So you can add some of those little pieces in. Okay, now with my 4B pencil, I want to start adding in some of the darker values to the horizontal rock face. So I'm going to do some horizontal hatch marks in areas that I find that are a little bit darker. Try to make the hatch marks go the same way that you see them on the mountain. So if they're at, for example, if they're at kind of more of a side-to-side, not really angle, side-to-side shape, make them side-to-side. If they're at kind of an upward angle, do some upward angle stuff. vertical, a little bit of a curve, you know, just try to shape your pencil marks similar to the shape that you see on your reference photo. Okay, I'm just going to add a little bit of a definition line to that top portion of the snow. Okay, so we've got quite a bit of detail in here. I probably want to add, you know, a little bit more. And I'm not going to spend too much more time on the detail stuff of this, but you can go ahead and do as much detail as you want with that. What I'm going to do next is try to block in the rest of the bottom portion and then do some overall detail. Okay, I'm going to go back to my B pencil now, and what I want to do is I'm going to draw in some faint lines which will adjust a little bit as we go. But if you look at the overall kind of angle of the tree line, I know there's little pieces that jut up and down through, but you want to follow this kind of angled path down through. Okay, and then there's a piece right here. That's another hill. And what you want to do is look up above again. Where does this hill start to curve down? Well, right about this portion here is where the curve starts to happen. So I'll curve this down right here. And it's a pretty good drop off like that. And I'll just adjust this little piece here. Kind of messy. Okay, so we've got this little piece, this big rock piece right here. So the trees come to about this point. And actually this mountain has a little bit more of a steeper curve right through there. So I'm going to adjust that. Okay, so we've got our big kind of rock curved opening here. There's a little piece of trees right there. And this curves, comes really close to this line and then follows it down to where it almost connects and then goes off the page. Okay, so now we have, for the most part, we have our tree line stuff put in. There's one little thing right through here that's hard to see in the reference photo. I'm going to start this piece up a little bit higher. But it comes down like this and then curves kind of straight out, and then we've got that curve right here that eventually goes down, and then everything's kind of combined down at the bottom. So just to kind of go over a few things here, you could actually do this portion right here in the beginning. The way I work is I like to start adding in some of the more detailed stuff first. I'm not sure why. I mean, it's not the right way or wrong way. You can block in everything first and then go into details, but I think it's just that I'm mostly too impatient and I want to just start putting in some detail. So what I do is block in the top portion, add in some detail, then come down here and add in some more detail. Okay, so we've got these tree lines here. What I want to try to do is just, try to get it close with the shape. So I'm going up and down. This comes down really close, and there's like it's an interesting shape here. Okay, and then if we go down here, we've got this little triangular piece. Little opening right here. Little indication of an opening here. A little opening over here. I'm not going to worry too much about this stuff over there. Then right here, little opening. Once you have all these little openings put in, then it's a tedious process of just making repetitive hatch marking for tree shapes. But before we do that, let's go back to our white colored pencil. And now I want to define this snowy area a little bit better. So we can block this right in, pretty bright. That's a great big white piece of snow. Then right through here, there's some bands of snow, really kind of faint, but there's a couple bands here and there, so I want to put those in. What I'm going to do is block in this piece of snow pretty solid and then cut into it with some of those details in a minute. So I want to get this pretty much blocked in all the way. And then I'll go ahead and block in some of those little detail things. Like we've got a little opening here, so I'll just do a little shape and hatch marks. Then over on this side we have a little opening here. Actually, it's a little bit higher. Like I said before, you don't have to go too crazy with getting every single detail, but if you get some of the major ones, everything starts to look like how it does in the reference photo. There's a little piece here. Snow kind of curls up right there, and then has a little triangular shape opening here. Okay, so now I have, well, there's a little bit more snow that I forgot about, so let's put that in. Some more bands of snow right here. Then we have a little squiggly piece of snow coming up right there. And another one right through there. Then a couple little ridge areas of snow. Okay, so I got most of the snow in there. Next, what I'm going to do is do the tree line stuff, and I'm going to zoom in to show you the technique I use for the trees, and then you have the tedious task of filling in this whole section of those trees. Okay, for this section, I'm going to use a variety of pencils. I'd say just maybe a B and a 4B would be sufficient. And what we're going to do is I'm going to start in this little patch here, and we're just going to do vertical hatch marks like this and overlap them. And we're going to fill in our tree spaces. And you can see what I'm doing is not doing 100% solid, leaving little tiny gaps, mostly around the edges. We'll do the middle portion here a little bit more solid. But leaving little tiny gaps around the edges help make it look more realistic. So just vertical. Keep that pencil going vertical, and that will help make it look like tree shapes rather than just hatch marks. Okay, and so that's just the tedious task of filling this whole area in. And I'm just going to fill in this section here. I'm going to get you started on the second section and then let you fill in the rest, and then I'll catch up with you for the final few steps. So try to keep these hatch marks the same size, which means, so I'm doing little lines like this, but I'm keeping pressure on the pencil for the most part, not lifting it too much. And just fill in these sections here. And then I'll catch up with you for the next portion here. So fill in, remember, keep the pencil vertical, and that will help make the shapes look like tree shapes on the top. And then I'll catch up with you, like I said, for the foreground portion where there's a few different values. And I'll go over a technique for that. Okay, as we work down through the foreground here, I'm going to continue going with my B pencil for the most part. I've got a 4B pencil here too. And in order to get different values, actually I'm going to start out with my 4B. Press a little bit harder for this ridge, but we're still doing the same thing. We're going to get a darker value, which is going to help bring this piece out in front. And try to get a few little tips here going outside this line. That's going to give it a pine tree or fir tree feel at the very top. Okay, and then I'll go back to my B pencil here in a second to get a lighter value. But for the most part, we're just going to continue doing the same thing. In through this section here, the value is similar to the trees in behind it, just slightly darker. Okay, so that's how we're going to get a darker value. So over here, there's an area where you can see the front of the trees. You just put a little bit of darker value on those openings, and that brings them out a little bit and makes it more three-dimensional. So along these edges here, you know, where the trees kind of meet the rock face, there's a little bit darker value. So to get those textures in different values, just use a softer lead pencil, maybe a little bit more pressure, and you can get some of those textures within the tree, and then, or within the trees, and then, you know, there's some little areas throughout the hill that are a little bit darker, especially over on this side, this right-hand side. So I'm using a 4B pencil over here, still doing those hatch marks, but we're making this value a little bit darker on this side, which will give the appearance of more light on this section here. So just a slight shift helps create three-dimensional shape. And I try to follow the path or the shape of the hill. So since it curves over this way, when I do my hatch marks, I'm curving them along that same plane. Okay, so a little less pressure. You can go back to the B pencil. Just apply regular pressure and you'll get a lighter line on the areas that are a little bit lighter in value. And then a little bit more pressure on the darker areas. Okay, I'm going to come back to that and do some final details as well, but while we're at it here, I'm going to do some directional lines like this, which kind of help indicate we're darkening the value just a little bit, but it also helps indicate the shape and the flow of the mountain. So just going to darken those values by adding those directional lines. And then I'm going to come through this face again. Some directional lines to show that this is a sheer face. Same with up here. Remember, this is a little bit lighter right here and then darker on this side. Okay, and all of those lines kind of help with your drawing to give this overall shape. So what you can do is add in some of those directional lines and then go ahead and fill in the rest of this foreground. Then we'll do some final touches to the drawing. Okay, I just want to go over a couple final steps, and you can see what I did is I darkened my little frame around the painting, or the drawing, not a painting. And what I want to do next is I'm going to go to my 4B pencil here. Okay, I just want to go over a few final steps. What I'm going to do is go to my 4B pencil. So I got my 4B pencil in case you didn't hear that. And I want to do some final details. You can see I darkened the frame thing around the drawing. What I want to do is just kind of go in and with my 4B just add a few more detailed kind of tree shapes. And I'm just going quick here, adding some texture, trying to carry the same type of curvature. Just adding in, looking at my reference photo and looking for little darker shifts. Okay, and so you can go through. I'm not going to do it all right through here just because it takes forever, but you can go through and tire your hand out even more and do some more detail through those tree sections there, maybe a little bit in through these sections. Okay, then what you can do is with your 4B, if you want to do a little stylized look, maybe you want to darken the line of the mountain a little bit. You don't have to do this. I just kind of like this stylized look. So I add a little bit of a outline. And again, I'm working on line work, so not everything is the perfect width line. I'm going to do a little bit of a lighter line up here with this snow. So I'm going to take my white pencil now and just darken up some of these spots, or I should say lighten up some of these spots, just adding another layer to my white colored pencil. Okay, then I'm going to add in a few clouds that are a little bit different than what you see in the reference photo, because I don't really want the cloud to come down and overlap the mountain. So I'm going to do some of these rounded circular strokes with my pencil and just slowly change the value . Don't want to go too bright. I'll just add in a few cloud shapes, just circular pencil marks. That way I keep the edges of my clouds soft. It's similar to painting. Okay, and we'll add a few more, maybe right up in this corner. Okay, and then I'm going to do some really light hatch marks horizontal to indicate that the sky gets a little bit lighter down here. And maybe a little bit on this side, not much. More so over here, especially down in that corner. and really fade it right as you get up here to the clouds. Okay, so just subtle clouds in there. The final step for this, you can go in and add as much detail as you want. I'm going to take my white pen and just add in some brightness. So it just brightens it up a little bit. Might take a couple layers. And if you don't have a white pen, this is an oil-based white pen, that's okay. You can just layer your white colored pencil a little bit more. I'll even brighten this snow up just a little bit, even though it's mostly in shadow. Maybe we'll keep that right-hand side a little bit. Okay, and since we brightened that up quite a bit, then you can go maybe back into your clouds a little bit more. And just bring the value up a little bit. You don't want to go too bright with these. You don't want to compete with that nice bright snow. Okay, so that completes our mountain drawing lesson. For this, remember, we're really taking our time right in the beginning to get our shape as accurate as we can, and then we can kind of map out where all of our elements are, the snow, the trees, and all that, and then we go into adding in some of the detail. We moved down into the hills, same idea, we kind of mapped out where the trees were, and then went in with the hatch mark detail. You can do all of the blocking out right in the beginning if you want to, or you can do it the same way I did, where you did the top part, a little bit of detail, blocked in the bottom part, then added in detail, and then did some finishing touches. But remember, it's more about, you know, your hand-eye coordination, trying to get as much of the detail as you can. You don't have to worry about every single little piece of detail unless you want to spend more time doing it. If you have any questions, you can post your comments in the video section or the comment section of the video on Facebook. You can also post your progress there. I'm looking forward to seeing some of your guys' interpretation and work on this mountain. So post those images in the comment section underneath the video on Facebook. If you want to join the sketchbook challenge, all you have to do is go to the link in the YouTube description, and it's on Facebook, and you just join the group. And once you're approved, you can see all of the videos. Anybody can join, so everybody gets approved. But just go ahead and go to Facebook, join the group, and you can see a bunch of exercises. I'm doing this for a year, so you can follow all of those exercises over the year and see how much you can improve. Also, if you subscribe to my YouTube channel, you also see most of the videos as well. The only difference is you just can't really post your progress in YouTube. So that's why you'd want to join the Facebook group. So thanks again for watching, and I'm looking forward to seeing your progress, and I hope to see you soon in the next sketchbook challenge.